1. The time is now 5 p.m. Would you all stand for our opening prayer from Pastor Smith of First United Methodist Church, and we will follow that with a pledge to the flag.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for being in our midst tonight as we address the needs and the important matters of our city and our citizens. Father, we're so grateful for your great provision. The sun that rises in the morning and the moon that sets at night reminds us of what a special place Clewiston is. We ask for your presence here today. Give us clear thoughts, clear direction. Give us your wisdom, Father, as only as you can give it. In the precious name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. For a special commission meeting, do we have any additions, deletions, changes?
No, ma'am.
We're good to go. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Gardner, second.
Yes, second.
Second by Pittman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Does anyone in the public wish to make any comments on either of these resolutions regarding the Commerce Park, which is what we've called this special meeting for? Hearing none, we'll move forward. Resolution number 2021-46. Resolution 2021-46 approves and authorizes the mayor to sign the contract for sale and purchase between the City of Clewiston and OSGC Services Limited Liability Corporation for the sale of the property located at 525 Commerce Court, Clewiston, Florida, known as Lot Number 5, Clewiston Commerce Park. The financial impact contract price is $279,097.98, which price will be adjusted at closing to $1.08 per square foot. Recommended motion is to approve resolution number 2021-46.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Thompson. Do we have a second? Second by Pittman. Is there any discussion by the commission?
I just would like to say that I know I've talked to Randy about this, and when I read through the process of the background and the recommendations, that a lot of them are that this is that plans as a startup company, and it intends to establish, and it's intends to relocate their operation or create their operation. And so I just because it is a new company, it is a startup. I've talked to Randy about it several times because I have been concerned about that. He has assured me, and I want to put words in his mouth, that from what he sees in his indications and speaking directly to OSGC Services and their principal, that they are moving forward with this project. And my hope is that we are going to approve this tonight based upon the fact that they have assured us that this is what they're going to be doing, and that they have made this commitment to the community in building this facility as well as creating the jobs. So I just want that I've had concerns, but I have addressed those with the city manager, and I will support it tonight, but in hopes that this will come to pass.
Do you have any other comments or any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2021-46 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on, resolution number 2021-47 approves and authorizes the mayor to sign the contract for sale and purchase between the City of Clewiston and Vladimir Spivak, Albert Israelov, and Ivan Kravchuk for the sale of the property located at 510 Commerce Court, known as Lots 10, 11, and 12 of proposed Clewiston Commerce Park Addition 1 subdivision. The contract price is $261,360. Price will be adjusted at closing to $1.20 per square foot. Recommended motion is to approve Resolution 2021-47. So moved by Commissioner Thompson. Second? Second by Pittman. Commission have any discussion? Comments? Hearing none, we'll move to vote. Resolution 2021-47. All that approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. This time we will adjourn the call meeting, the special commission meeting, and we will call into session the workshop.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Pittman, second by Gardner. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Called workshop, deletions, changes, approval of the agenda. Being that this is a workshop, there's no additions to the agenda. Are there any deletions or changes?
That I'm aware of.
Motion to, well, we don't need to because it's a workshop. Does anyone present have any public comments on any of the items on the agenda this evening? Hearing none, we will move forward with item A, discussion regarding finance-related items. Sherry, this is your baby. Mr. Martin?
Just for the public here, I would like to say that I've asked the finance director to comment on something that we've initiated. Management has, based on the finance recommendation, to streamline departmental fee collections in combination with providing multiple customer payment options. And the finance director authored a report that's included in your agenda. It's a brief memo just highlighting the certain aspects of this that would be applicable to different departments. So I'd like her to come up and review that with the board and for public consumption as well, since it will benefit customers as well as accomplish several goals that finance and management have for our city financial operations.
Sherry Howell, Finance. Okay, for clarity, before we get started, in the memo that I provided to the city manager, it talks about the different departmental locations and that we want to streamline the process for receiving payments. For clarity, I want to point out that there are processes in place. Some of them have a combination of software programs, and some of them are it's simply a matter of collecting funds and writing a receipt because, well, basically they don't do a lot of cash collection. So it's been a goal of ours for quite some time to streamline and to make them, to integrate what each department location is doing, to integrate it into our software. Because currently in our other departmental locations, with the exception of the utilities department, everything that is collected ultimately is manually input by the finance department, by someone in finance. So they're actually hand keying in receipts. So with this in place, we hope to use our current cashiering system that we've already got. We just want to provide that at our other locations, and in the process of doing that, offer different forms of payment that would be customer friendly. Because in some of our areas, while we do have those we do accept credit cards, we don't for everything. And that has, as time goes by and technology is more and more, there's really not an excuse for that. We really need to, so what we're doing is really taking care of 2 or 3 different goals at one time. We want to be more customer friendly. We want to with our existing software. get this started. And our goal is to start with our community development department, because we want to hopefully be prepared for them by July so that they can do billing of their annual business tax receipts. Currently, there's 500 annual business tax receipts that are billed. They use their current permitting system to do that and a spreadsheet to keep up with it. The permitting software is not geared for that. And that's why they have to use the software to keep up with it. And then we have to keep up with what they're doing. So hopefully, we're going to take a software that is dedicated to this license and tax and implement it there. And that will be integrated with our cashiering. And then that goes away. They don't have to keep up with that. And that will be more efficient for them because they'll be able to run reports at their fingertips for code violations, because once someone doesn't pay their business tax, it becomes an issue with code enforcement. So they'll be able to sort by business types. There'll be a lot that they can do. We're already working on that, and the ladies in the community development department, they're pretty excited about it. So hopefully we'll be ready, and our billing this year will go out in that manner. And the goal is at the same time that we address that, to implement the cashiering, because it goes hand in hand with what we're hoping to do with the business tax receipts. And then we'll get their other receipts that they're doing. It'll be integrated like a cashiering system, and it'll automatically post to our system. And once we complete the community development, we've got about 5 other locations that we're going to review and look at. And those are the police department with the animal control, our public library, our recreation department, then our city hall, and utilities for miscellaneous receipts that we take in, and of course the golf course. And again, I just wanted to make sure everyone understood when we talk about receipting money and taking money in, we do have those processes in place. For instance, at the golf course, we have a point of sale system. Currently, it's not integrated with our software. So what we hope to accomplish when we get there is to see, can we integrate? What's the best thing to do all the way around for the golf course and for our financials. So there'll be a little bit more exploration there. That's why we've got them listed last. So I don't know if anyone, once you read the memo, if you had any questions.
How does that differ from what we're doing now, like the golf course? Is it just cash only, or are they?
No, the golf course has credit card system, but the golf course also has their annual memberships, and they go out and they're billed and they're kept up with a spreadsheet, and it's not integrated with, in other words, we balance the receivables and we balance them with a spreadsheet. So we have other items with other, not just the point of sale, but we also have what we call in our software, it's called a miscellaneous AR. And so it's miscellaneous billing of different types of invoices. And so we hope to also incorporate that in with the golf course so that those annual billings, that won't have to be done anymore. We won't be manually keeping up with it. And that will probably come sooner than the point of sale. Because once we start integrating the miscellaneous AR, I mean, we'll be able to do it for any billing, and that's a type of billing that we want to go ahead and get on our system as soon as possible. That way you'll be able to pull up someone and tell automatically. You won't have to go to a spreadsheet or double check and make sure that the spreadsheet's accurate. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish there. But we do, the point of sale at this time, we manually input the daily activity. Once it's closed out, someone is manually inputting that into our financials because it doesn't post. So that's
Not a, because I know point of sale now is, you can track it online, has a cloud system, you don't have to manually put it
yes,
in
sir.
anything.
Yes, sir. And the issue has been resources at the time, but we're getting there. So we're hoping once we get to the golf course and we'll be able to look at those and get the best solution, and also look for the best price as well.
Any other questions from the commission? Mr. Martin, you have any comments?
No, other than it's fortunate we have the software capabilities. The city acquired the ability to do this some time ago when they upgraded their software systems. But it's unfortunate that we've continued to not be able to fully utilize that technology. And that's not a criticism of anybody in the past. It's just at this point, we believe we have the wherewithal to accomplish it with the staffing we currently have and with the support of the different departments and their desire to move into a higher level of accountability. And this will be good for the employees. It'll be a transition, and that's always a challenge. But once it's accomplished, it's done, and we'll be better going forward. And it will certainly relieve some of these manual tasks that are fraught with the potential for mistakes from our process, and the burden of that usually falls on the finance department. So hopefully it'll make it more equitable and fair in that regard as well.
Potential for cash going in pockets too.
Well, there's always liabilities that you'll eliminate or minimize. That can still happen with any system, as you know, if someone's inclined, but it'll be much more difficult and much more challenging because more people will be able to track it. And good comments. Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate Sherry's effort. If no other questions.
Item B, we had indicated a desire to discuss several departments.
Before we go into that, Mayor, I did want to comment on the other finance-related items in that first section. Just some brief reports. I appreciate Sherry doing that. One of the other things that I just want to make the board aware of, I've talked to a couple of you who've inquired over the years about this, but I've been reaching out and having a discussion with one potential underwriter. The city has, just for background, the city has some U.S. Department of Agriculture bonds for water system. It was related to the construction of the water plant. Currently, we have in the neighborhood of $12 million in outstanding bonded indebtedness. It's about a 26-year term remaining on that long-term debt. When the new water plant was constructed, the interest rate on those is fixed at 4 1/8% interest rate. Historically low interest rates of late have raised the potential for us to realize a rate savings if we consider refinancing this debt. I've been had a couple of conversations. Sherry and I'll be having more, but I just want to make the board aware that we'll be looking at the potential to refinance that because the market currently, I'm told, of course that changes on a regular daily basis, but 3% or potentially less, it seems to be a reasonable goal. And the estimated savings could be in excess of $2 million in interest payments if we're successful in being able to get this done before rates do anything dramatic. So our goal is to pursue this, come back with a strategy and a process, and ask for you to take any formal actions necessary to initiate and complete that process in the months ahead, weeks and months ahead, trying to take advantage of the current market before something dramatic changes. But again, I've talked to underwriters. We'll be looking at all the necessary steps. There would be some overhead costs associated, but for that kind of potential savings, those can usually be rolled in, and the city realize a very significant savings to our rate customers as a result. I'll answer any questions I can today, but that's just a highlight of it.
That's not extending the term at all, is it?
No, I'm not looking at that. I guess you could potentially lower it, the term, shorten the term, but again, it depends on the rate, whether that's a good idea. My goal would be to try to benefit the water and sewer fund by not putting any more pressure on it, maybe relieving some. It also would have some potential for positive effect on the terms of the entire debt issue. The terms for USDA are really long term, so they're very stringent. They have some significant requirements. It may be that we've reached a point in the debt and with the term that some of those might be relieved of us and make it easier for us going forward for anything else the city might want to do in terms of future debt on utilities that would be more favorable. So but no increased term. That would sort of be counterproductive, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I've got a few other reports in the financial area. We haven't talked about it in a little while, but I just want to remind the board, going into the budget process this year, we were successful in receiving $890,000 in CARES Act reimbursement funds through the county that originated with the federal government, were channeled through the state, and then the county shared a portion of the funding they received. To date, we have acquired allocated or obligated roughly $524,000 in change of those funds for two projects: our emergency communication equipment upgrade and the fire department breathing apparatus, SCBA breathing apparatus equipment. The breathing apparatus equipment has been delivered. The communications equipment is in its final stages. I can update that all the parts have been received and are being processed at this point, and all of the other technical aspects are being accomplished for that $356,000 upgrade of our emergency 911 communications equipment for the dispatch center, as well as the portable radios for all of our law enforcement personnel. And we're working with the county to try to get the same radio equipment, portables, through the county in a cost-sharing measure for that department to upgrade their portable equipment, but for the members of the department. But 524 leaves us with a balance of roughly $365,000. Management has been working with our technical IT department, and we're working with the county, as I've briefly updated the board previously, to try to have a technology upgrade for our computer equipment, our audio-visual equipment in this room, and at some of our other facilities. And we're looking at in the neighborhood of up to $150,000 to $160,000. It may actually be a little less, particularly with the cost sharing with the county on this room that we're discussing, because they do use the meeting room as well. That will leave us a balance of around $200,000, $205,000 or thereabouts. And we're looking at other priority public safety expenditures and other items to come back to you during the budget process to discuss all or any portion of that before we obligate anything else. But at this point, we're in a much better place in terms of our capital needs in the public safety realm going into this year's budget. I'll be glad to answer any questions on that, but I just want to give you an update of where we were at this point.
Questions, comments?
Randy, I'm sorry, when did you say all the radios would be in and the apparatus?
The equipment is all in hand. We're pushing the vendor to have it up and running. Hopefully this month is the goal, to have it all completed this month. That's the expectation that I've asked to try to have it up and running.
And the breathing apparatus, I'm sorry. And the breathing apparatus?
Those are in hand. They're training on them at this point. They just got those, I think, last week.
The sooner the better with the radios, because our officers are having to share radios as of today.
Anything else under financials, Mr. Martin?
Yes. The next item is the American Rescue Plan Act that was adopted less than 60 days ago. Congress appropriated funding that will be for all cities and municipalities and counties across the country. I've reported to you previously that the Florida League of Cities, based on federal estimates initially released, showed that we would be eligible for in the neighborhood of $3.3 million from those funds. I've gotten more insights. I've been doing weekly webinars with those folks listening in. Not a lot of guidance has come out of U.S. Treasury. That's the agency that's charged with providing the guidance on the details of it. Thus far, the details contained in the legislation speak to things and priority items such as water and sewer needs, broadband, and some other similar types of broad brush potential uses. But U.S. Treasury is going to give specific guidance to all municipalities across the country. And we're expecting this to be available by the end of next week. They targeted May the 11th for having their guidance available. Eligible uses are being analyzed and will be further analyzed once we get the guidance on priorities that the funds can be utilized for. The mechanism of distribution for small cities such as ourselves, under 50,000 across the entire country, they'll be distributing those funds through the state. The state does not, in my understanding, have any oversight or any action that they have to take with regard to these funds. They're pass-through dollars. This year, we're anticipating receipt of 50% of the funds. So if it is the 3.3 or thereabouts, we should get 50% of those in the coming weeks or months, and then 50% next year. And that's the distribution cycle that they have. And you have, I believe it's 4 up to almost 5 years, over 4 years to obligate and use these funds. So we'll obviously be following the further guidance on potential uses, because there's been about hundreds of questions submitted from local governments on interpreting the guidelines thus far that were in the statute or in the legislation that passed. But the hundreds of pages of legislation, but the Treasury is supposed to be given a frequently asked questions type similar to the CARES Act, and we'll be going through that process in the months ahead, trying to determine so that we properly use these funds and report to you what our recommendations for potential uses are. But obviously, we have a number of water and sewer priority needs that would be, in my opinion, one of the top priorities for the use of these funds.
Questions, comments?
Right. The last item then was Sherry and I'll be glad to update the board. We were successful. We changed the auditing process last year, have a new auditing firm. This year we got a much faster jump start on the auditing process. Our expectation is the results of the audit would be available in May. Don't know the exact date yet. Sherry will be glad to give you any feedback on her involvement with the auditors, but they're on target. She just advised me that we did get our OPEB, our post-employment benefits report, complete, and we received that last week. That was one of the critical pieces for the audit to be wrapped up. I'll defer to Sherry if she wants to add anything or correct me on anything. You have anything to add? Okay, unless there's questions, that's the status. The good news of that, by getting it at this time of year, is we will have the results of the annual audit, and you'll know precisely what our fund balances are and so forth, less projection needs during the budget process. So you'll have that accurate information for the budget process.
Thank you.
So that's progress, and I applaud Finance for working with the auditors and the board's direction of getting the committee we had that got us a professional municipal, no criticism of any past auditors, but a municipal auditing firm that has been very helpful in expediting and streamlining that process so that we can meet the expectations of getting this data in a more timely manner. That's all on the finance, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention.
Item B, we had indicated that we wanted to discuss several departments prior to budget processing, and we had asked that the police department be one of those. So, Mr. Martin, I'm going to let you have these reports, and I want you to discuss our next steps.
Okay, just a couple of quick items, and then I'll talk about the next steps. But first thing I'd like to mention, I shared with you in that financial report the status of the 911 communications project. If there's additional questions or need for discussion, be glad to do that. One thing I've asked, working with staff and have asked them to research, and we've been working on this for a while, is what are our options for maintaining and replacing as necessary the department's vehicles. We've been looking and comparing the advantages, disadvantages of leasing, looking ahead to the budget versus outright purchases, which has been as far as I know, other than any potential borrowing that was done, they've all been accomplished with outright purchases of vehicles for replacements. We've gotten research from a number of other municipalities and agencies and counties and sheriff's departments that are looking and have actually utilized leasing. We're looking at whether the type of recommendation could be on a trial basis for a portion of our fleet. It could be for a broader version, but don't have any specifics to give tonight. I just wanted to introduce that topic. I can try to answer any questions because I've been involved in at least a couple of those conversations with potential vendors. But the municipal leasing program is different than, quite a bit different than the typical individual leasing of vehicles. It's a completely different process. Large firms such as Enterprise, not to say they'd be favored, and other leasing entities have been doing this for a while, and they've streamlined it and improved the processes and met the governmental financial requirements for pursuing that. I understand the city considered this a few years ago. Don't know the history of why the city didn't pull the trigger and do it. I know that on the list is included is the Hendry County Sheriff's Department. I haven't talked to them yet about their use of this and whether they've done it or just considering it. Other departments in the area, Stewart, and I've got a list of others that was given to us that we'll be following up with those departments to get their take on it. But it seems to be a viable option. I've used it in a limited basis in my prior service in other communities. But one of the challenges over the years was law enforcement vehicles are unique in some respects in terms of the equipment they have. And I think the industry has evolved to catch up with law enforcement and now provides a very viable alternative to traditional purchasing. And so we will be researching that and making some recommendations during the budget process, but I'll be providing you further updates as we get more information going forward on that. So I'll see if there's any questions, but those were two items I wanted to mention before we get into the meat of the discussion.
I just have a quick question. Do you know right off the top of your head the average, not mileage, but also the years some of the vehicles that are performing right now?
Yes, I'll be providing all of that, an assessment of our current fleet, where they stand. I just know that we haven't bought any since I've been here, so at least 2 fiscal years. I don't know exactly when the last ones were purchased before that, but I believe it might even be longer than 2 years. I do know that we have starting to see some major repair items this year. We had 2 that were fairly significant amounts that made you question whether they were worthy of repairing for a vehicle that's got substantial mileage and age. And so that's what prompted this effort to look carefully at it this year. But we'll be reporting to you during the workshop process the condition, mileage, all of that on the entire fleet. Right. And then looking and comparing at what they've done is like a 10-year analysis I've seen of how you fare, because you greatly minimize repair costs, which we have significant dollars go towards that each year. You also improve the fuel efficiency, and the other big item is you roll them over such that warranties cover much of the period that you actually use the vehicle. So that's an advantage in terms of other unknown items that come usually several years after the warranty has expired. So those are just some of the comparative things. Of course, if you buy them outright, you can buy a handful for what you can lease several for a number of years. So that's sort of where the rub comes. And I've like I say, I'm not advocating for it yet. I'm not sold on it, but I just wanted to alert you that we are going to be looking very carefully at that and trying to address this remaining need in terms of capital equipment in our law enforcement agency.
I look forward to the analysis, Randy.
And it won't necessarily just be the police department. I have used it in other departments, public works, trucks particularly, because they tend to have a really good resale value. I've done that in other agencies and some other departments for maintenance kind of uses. Those I'm very familiar with, and they have proven to be a viable alternative to normal purchasing.
You said the public works trucks, you're talking garbage trucks.
No,
No?
individual pickups.
All right.
Usually, those are the one that really has a high resale value in these programs.
Okay.
Have we paid off the loan for the last batch of cars we bought for the police department?
I need to check. We have. Yeah, Sherry. I can go to the source. She says yes.
And what revenue source will this come out of? Will it come out of the police department's budget?
It depends. It could be, obviously, if you have efficiencies in maintenance costs, you could roll those dollars. So it could be part of that. Again, you can do it through a borrowing. You can, different methods that different communities have used. Particularly if you have a need that's fairly large, a lot of times it's like the city did last time, apparently, as you spread it out over a period of years. In the leasing, you would just set a fixed amount, as I understand these programs, for the number of vehicles you want to replace in the batch. And that would carry on for a period of years.
But
and so,
where would this money come from? The police department
out
budget?
of general fund budget from many of
Reserves?
those sources. Not necessarily. It could come out of the annual operating budget of the department. And it's to some degree, whether there's enough there to do it, I don't know until we decide what we do.
When you come up with a dollar amount, you'll have where it comes from by then, right?
Oh, yes, yeah. We'll definitely have identified where we would fund it.
How many cars do you think we need?
That's the rub. I want to do more analysis of the question that was posed earlier on the condition of the vehicles. But obviously, most of our vehicles are not new because we haven't bought any in recently.
The reason why I ask is I don't want to run into the same issue as the fire department, the air packs.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's what you want to avoid. If you can it's better to get a few each year, and otherwise you get a bunch, and that has a significant impact. These care dollar reimbursements is a potential source to begin the process. And that was for public safety expenditures, so it would qualify. And so that might be this year a source to address some of the need, particularly if you only bought a few. If you go the leasing route, that might carry us for a couple, 3 years. And we just have to see if that's the case.
We're definitely in need, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And they're regularly maintained by our public works department.
The garage does the regular maintenance. Anything, though, that exceeds their capabilities, like the couple of these we've had of late, we've had to farm it out through Allen J or some other source. And that's where it really gets expensive, because if we do it, you're just dealing with the parts and things. If you're doing it, outsourcing labor and parts, you know the drill. You know what that does. But when it comes to replacing an engine or the works, I call it, the technology stuff, the wiring and those kind of things that sometimes can exceed our capabilities.
Or the value of the vehicle when you get there.
Well, that's where we're at. We've hit that value point. Where do you stop spending on a 6-year-old, 7-year-old vehicle, and it's cost 60, 80% of the value? It's a
One thing I want to address too is our vehicle policy. One thing, if we get new cars, when we get new cars, that needs to be stuck to. Our city is 4 square miles. Our police cars should last 5 times longer than any other city. There's no excuse why a car has a bad engine in 6 years.
Yeah.
Driving 80, 90 miles one way home, we can't afford that.
Well,
Palm Beach County, Collier County can. We can't.
The take-home policies is clearly one impact factor that we will review in those numbers, and you'll have the opportunity to see what the current procedure's been for the last several years, and that's subject to change. That'll be another one on the next item that I would hope we would.
And That current policy for the police department, I don't think is in the handbook. I don't know when or who passed it, but I don't think the
It was
commission did.
done through the department, is my understanding. What I observed was a memo formed in the SOP of the police department. It is not in a city policy.
Can the department make policy like that?
They've made a decision to do it apparently in the past.
But that's not my question. Can a department head make policy covering?
Subject to, obviously, if the city has an overall policy, of adopted policy, then they can't be counter to that. But they do have procedures and policies within the department that are exceed our current personnel manual, for example. There's standard operating procedures and things of that nature. But
So your
apparently,
answer is yes, the department head can make those changes. With
subject to oversight, they can.
oversight by who?
Well, it would start with the manager and then the board. In my experience in other places.
Well, that was my point. I don't think that went through the board. So moving forward, we need to.
There is no
take a
board
look at it.
adopted policy that I'm aware of at this point, but that's certainly one that can be looked at.
Because we want to keep our cars and not have to repeat the position we're in right now. So we have to take a look at all that.
I don't disagree with that. Of course, we also need to take into consideration being competitive with our peers for officers. So I think somewhere in there's a happy median, hopefully, that could be reached. Because if we're the only department that won't allow take-home vehicles,
We're not going to get any
it's going
viable
to
candidates.
obviously.
That wasn't my point. It was,
I know,
it's
I
a
know.
process.
That's right, and limits and understandings of where you're going to draw certain boundaries on that.
Right.
It can't be just unlimited.
And again, when you talk about departments, the departments all fall under city manager, whether it was this city manager or a former city manager. I'm sure that things were reviewed, and at that level, things were decided upon. I'm sure that things like that could go back and looked at, but the
I just
city
don't have the
manager
history.
is right. The city manager was responsible in the past for each of the departments of the city and making decisions with those,
Making policy too.
making decisions with the department directors. So
I'd like to see the maintenance, because Greg, when he mentioned 4 square miles, I got to thinking, my last truck I kept, I don't know, it's over 10 years. And I guarantee you, I had more miles than any police officer put on it, or police, any of our cars. So that brings up the question, are they being maintained properly? So I'd like to see,
Sure, we can
maybe
get some.
Sean or somebody could come in and tell us.
We can give some feedback on the maintenance practices and procedures. They do keep detailed records of those, but I'll include that in the review. The other point, I will have to admit, though, in my experience with law enforcement vehicles, there's a lot of sitting and idling time, and that has an impact, as you know, on vehicles, not necessarily the mileage, because some of these aren't that high mileage, but they've got a lot of hours. But they're not like a piece of equipment, you got that clock on it that tells you the hours of running time. But there are
No, they have it. It's internal. They have an hour meter.
on the
My truck has one. Every new car has one.
And,
I didn't realize.
you're right about the hours, but that's usually bigger agencies because they don't have, they work zones. They don't have an office to come back to do reports or whatever, so they have to stay in their zone and do them in their cars.
And some of
not
that is the department standard operating procedures. In my experience, some of them, they want them in the cars. They don't want them in the office, so they sit in them and do reports. I believe, and a lot of that goes back to community policing concept. So there's some of both. But your points are well taken.
We talk about starting new. We want to start new, but we want to be better. Moving on, we
Good
want to
goal.
do better.
I agree.
Clewiston citizens deserve better, and we need to work hard in making sure they get it so we don't get in this position again. So that's why I'm asking these
I
questions.
don't disagree.
but also just want to state that I know in the past when we had issues with vehicles, that those one vehicle could be used more than just 8 hours a day. So
Yeah, there have been some instances of sharing of vehicles, and
So
I know that.
I mean, none of us are running a car 24 hours a day, and sometimes that could be what's happened, or 7 days a week.
Clewiston does slip seating where they turn in their vehicle and don't take it home. I thought we just talked about a take-home policy.
We have
In
done some of
in
that.
case of emergencies, all right.
These vehicles, some of them are 10 years old, so
Yeah,
we're talking
and
about
some of that may have
many years.
evolved over time.
The reason why I ask is some agencies, you don't have a car. You turn it in, somebody else gets in it, and it runs. All the time.
Yeah, and I know that we've had to do some of that sharing when vehicles are down or in service
Okay.
or whatever.
But as a general rule over the years, every officer has had their own car.
You tried to maintain that.
Right.
All right. Ready to move through the report then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Those were initial items of primary importance for this meeting. I want to review with the commission pending administrative changes for the police department and the status of ongoing recruitment efforts. That's a high priority to fill personnel vacancies. Specifically, our chief of police resigned. He has submitted his resignation. It's been accepted, and it's effective at this point in time at June 1 of 2021. He gave the policy required 30 days notice. Given this just occurred, I'm in the early stages of developing a plan of action to address the vacancy and want to highlight a couple of those items to fill this very important city leadership position. It's a process that, in my mind, based on my experience in dealing with vacancies of a key person like the chief of police position, is to involve, given the normal dynamics of one of these processes, to involve the designation of an interim chief of police to assume the position when it becomes vacant, with an extensive regional, state, and national search for the best available qualified long-term replacement to follow that, with the interim serving until the permanent or long-term replacement is identified. I listed in the report some of the accomplishments that the department's had in recent years. I won't dwell on those, but one of the things that the chief and I have discussed is that the credit for the achievements of the department, in my opinion, as well as the chief's, in particular, some of the crime statistic improvement that was reported in the most recent annual report, is the dedicated men and women who work tirelessly in all capacities within the department every day and night, because it is a 24/7, 365 operation. As for next steps, I'm insisting upon the department to try to complete these items. I want the items such as the communication system and any preparations for the budget to be fully completed in the next the rest of May. I want us to work hard to fill as many vacancies with qualified people as we can over that period in the department. I will be working the administrative replacement of the chief of police directly with assistance of our office here with the HR. I want to wrap up any of those details and particularly work towards getting the information we'll need for the coming budget. I give you a list in the report the vacancies we currently have. That we've made a couple of offers, but at this point we are down 4 certified officer positions net. If we are successful with the backgrounds and the current ones selected for appointments are finalized, we have 1 dispatcher position vacant remaining, and a property evidence technician, and a part-time vacancy in the animal control. My goal would be to try to fill as many of those as quickly as possible to provide relief for the current staff. The priorities, as far as I'm concerned from a manager standpoint in this important transition period in leadership in the department, is to ensure that public safety and specifically law enforcement services in Clewiston remains a top priority function of city government consistent with the city's charter. To do that, I pledge to expeditiously fill the department leadership void as described, and work with the department in the interim to address the current staff and to meet with our current staff and make them well aware of their importance to the future of the Clewiston Police Department, and that their contributions are much appreciated. And I intend as city manager to be actively on the front line engaged with those department members that are in the department to convey that message. Further, with the staff and commission support, I want to ensure the public that management and the Clewiston Police Department will work diligently to develop and retain public confidence. in the provision of critical public safety services to the community without interruption during this transition period and beyond. Finally, my goal is to work collaboratively to develop and maintain positive working relationships with affiliate law enforcement agencies to support our department's efforts as necessary to achieve these priority goals into the future. In closing, I respectfully request that the members of the Commission join me in support of these stated goals, and particularly recognizing the importance of the Clewiston Police Department to the community's future success as we all work collectively to make our community the best it can be. And that's my report for tonight. I'll be glad to answer any questions or discuss any aspects of it that the board sees appropriate.
Thank you, Randy.
Mayor, I'd respectfully request the interim chief be appointed immediately so there's a smooth transition over the next 30 days. It's just not dropped in somebody's lap.
Well,
And that would be my goal, to do it as quickly as I can
No,
identify and find somebody.
right, and I believe that was the point of your communication, was that you intend to have this happen quickly so that we have the extrapolation of information, we have a seamless, forward-moving department so that we can maintain the integrity for the officers, and through that, the services that we provide to the city. I think the community likes the police department as a whole. I have not heard negativity about rank and file and the services that we offer to the community. And so it's incumbent upon us to make sure that those officers that are there and the ones that we bring on board understand that they have our support and that we appreciate and rely on the services that they bring to our community. Because the temperature in our country at this point does not need to invade the city of Clewiston. That is not a temperature that our officers need to be concerned about. Our officers need to know that they are needed, they are wanted, we appreciate them, and I would not want to function as a city without them. Bottom line.
Randy, I don't know if you're The endeavor.
to come in and investigate our PD's leadership and their handling of the child pornography case and the paddling of the school student, and to do a full audit for the last 24 months in our police department. And the information's out there. If any of you ask, you'll easily find out what happened or what didn't happen on the police department's part. I'll just give a short rundown. We had an individual.
Well, I would encourage you to be careful. There are still open investigations.
Absolutely.
And so you make yourself vulnerable if you want to make comments that you weren't there and you heard and saw. As having law enforcement experience, a case may have gone to the state attorney's office. It's still open until the state attorney decides what to do. They may call back and ask for more information. So I would just encourage you to be careful not to make yourself vulnerable. Please don't make the city vulnerable in sharing information that you may feel.
Continuing to cover these things up don't help things out. Shining a
That
light
is
on
the
it
law.
always fixes
That
it.
is the law. When there is an open investigation, that is the law.
Okay.
I am all for cards on the table and transparency, but having worked in that genre, I'm very careful about open investigations.
Me too.
We don't want to jeopardize. Okay.
Like I said,
city. Now I have a responsibility for the
I
city
sought
too.
counsel from others. This is the right thing to do. Malfeasance and misfeasance, in my opinion, was committed on behalf of some of the leadership. They put our community, our children at risk. This address where this was committed was 50 yards from our elementary school.
Okay.
100 yards
I believe
from
they're still
Discovery Daycare.
investigating.
And I am not going to cover for them, to make excuses for them. And you hear hearsay, it's open case. That's why I'm not investigating. I have full intentions, unless there's swift and extreme action taken on from the city to remedy my issues. I am going to make a motion to ask FDLE to come in and investigate these two issues and audit the police department. And then every commissioner will have their opportunity to stand with the police department or the constituents they represent. And I want to give you a heads up, and I want to have you 2 weeks so you can look into it. The information's out there. I can give you dates and times and days. I think 52 days from the time the police department had the information, and the sheriff's department had to serve that warrant because the police department refused it. That is
an opening.
unacceptable. Clewiston deserves better, and they will get better.
Difference
They're going to
between
get
rumor
better
and facts, sir.
than what they've been getting.
Okay.
Well, you know what, Greg, I'm so glad you brought some of this stuff up, because there are concerns that I have overall with some of the things I've been reading about. For instance, it's not, unfortunately, we see things in law enforcement that we're concerned about. But last week, I saw 2 articles, and this week I saw the same article over again about what's happening in Hendry County with law enforcement officers being hired outside the city at another agency. 51 of them have a history of personal or professional misconduct. The record shows 24 have been fired or resigned when accused of misconduct elsewhere for actions that were later proved. 27 others had previously committed offenses that would have been classified as moral character violation, offenses that could result in suspicion or revocation of their certification if the act had occurred while employed as an officer. This also includes Brady cops. This includes that they no longer can testify in court. And so my concern is, now that you brought up your concern, is that we don't have any answers as a city of what's happening up on our doorsteps.
We're going to get them.
So I think that if you're going to make a motion, for law enforcement, or investigation, I'm not sure from the attorney what we can and cannot do, but I also believe that in the best interest of the citizens of Clewiston, that they should be protected from what I'm seeing is unreal information that is factual, and that as a community, we've not discussed it. And so I think this great time that you brought this up, and also...
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about...
Child pornography?
I'm talking about a lot of host of issues that have come up with law enforcement officers that are in this community serving, and that we don't really know what the facts are.
Well,
And so I'd like to know the facts as well.
well, you will. Florida Fire Law Enforcement get a hold of them. I find it interesting that since I've been commissioner, every time a commissioner, including myself, has brought up the police department and addressed issues, you are very quick to say we can't get involved. I asked for a shade meeting several months ago, and I was told, nope, don't meet the criteria. Every time we try to discuss here to address the police department, you jump up to protect them. And I don't find it, well, it is ironic that the day the sheriff's department had to serve the warrant because the police department did not, and it was going to expire, the chief and assistant chief.
I actually have to stop you
This
because I
is
have
the
no
day-
idea. I
this is
have
the
no
day-
idea what you're talking about.
You'll get it. The day we had this meeting, you gonna
I
call me
think
out of
our
order? You're
attorney
gonna
needs
call me
to
out of order.
opine at this point.
I am.
I'm out
at
of
this
order?
point. Yes, I am. I think that let the investigations
On the
go.
basis of rules of order,
We don't,
or you don't like what I have to say?
well, is it verified? Is it verified?
That's not.
Are we
rules of
still
order.
talking about rumor here, or are we talking about? And I believe that there may have been an independent agency to look into that. Let the investigations run their course. I'm not saying I'm happy about that. I'd like my answers just like you do.
What
But there is a
what
policy and a
investigation's going
procedure.
on?
I understand that there was a call made to an outside agency to take a look at those issues.
Well, my motion
Okay.
will be an outside agency. It's called the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. They have
And
long-reaching arms.
that's your
and
prerogative
consequences.
to make that motion.
But my point was, I found it ironic that every time we try to make a correction, Commissioner Molly corrects us where we can't do it. And it's ironic that the day this warrant was served, the assistant chief and the chief was in her office instead of serving the warrant. Today, at 3:30, they were in her office. They don't come see me.
My goodness, are you following our police department
They
around,
don't see
Greg?
me.
Or do you have somebody else working on your
They're
behalf?
not here.
I'm not sure this
They're not here.
conversation
That's
is
outrageous,
serving
and
any
you're following the
positive.
police
Excuse
department.
me. Excuse me. We want to have constructive conversation. There is a law that sets out a policy and procedure that needs
agree.
to be
I
followed.
agree. Constructive conversations got us where we're at now.
Policy and procedure. There is a law that lays out how you follow these things. And I'm going to tell you, whether I was working in law enforcement or here, sometimes it's really slow, way too slow. Didn't like it then, don't like it now. But I have to allow the law to be followed, Greg.
What's the law and what's the
Commissioner
things you're
Thompson.
referring to?
You can't interfere with an ongoing investigation.
That's interference.
Yep. If that is an issue that's being looked into, to speak about it from up here is not appropriate. Mr. Brandenburg, am I correct here?
Ongoing police and criminal investigations should not be commented on in public while they are proceeding. I agree with that.
Thank you, sir.
We have a whole line of law enforcement back. Am I interrupting your or affecting your investigation? City and county here?
Nothing heard. Let's move on.
On the record, no.
For the record, no. Thank you. Mr. Martin,
I have a comment I want to make.
Mr. Pittman.
It's not to do with that case. On the campaign trail, I heard, I think I've already said this, I heard two major complaints from the constituents. Police department, animal control. Police department, and Greg alluded to some of those things tonight. And so I started asking questions, and we wouldn't even be discussing any of this right now had the city manager acted back in November when I was in his office, and I told him about the problems. And I'm not the manager, but I gave a solution, as we all do. And nothing happened. Nothing happened when I was in there in December. Nothing happened in January, and then here we are today. Had he acted, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. And since then, we don't have 4 vacancies. We have 7 vacancies. And that when one of those includes the evidence custodian. So, being a small town, there's another person fixing to leave. And that's going to be 8 vacancies. Hopefully, and we have a sergeant back there. Hopefully, we're fixing to hire some people. I don't know. So, any of you would do the same thing. We have so many vacancies. I'm going to find out why. So I started asking them. And it's the same thing Greg said. It's leadership. Or the lack of it. And again, this isn't about personalities or liking a person. It's about just doing your job. If a person doesn't do their job, then you have to find somebody else. It's no hard feelings. We have to do it every day. And anyone that runs a business, if someone isn't doing the job, or there's a hostile work environment, or which is some of the complaints of people I talk to, then you got to do something. But I can't do it. This commission can't do it. It's got to be the manager. So I would encourage the commission between now and the meeting, talk to some of these people that have left, and they'll tell you the truth. They can't tell the chief why they're leaving, because it goes in their record. He left because he didn't like me, or he's a whistleblower. And once that goes in your record as a police officer, it's a problem. If it goes into your record as a tractor driver, nobody cares. But if it goes in there as a police officer, it follows you for your whole career. But if you call them and talk to them personally, they will tell you the truth about why they're leaving and why we have more that are looking to leave. And we have to do something about it. I asked about a whistleblower's policy, and if you would write these notes, because I would like us to bring one back. I asked Kathy, the clerk, nobody can find one. I thought we did one 10 years ago, but evidently it either never got filed, never got voted on, something. But our officers that feel like they're being mistreated, they're not going to speak up. Because number one, who do they go to? Right? There's no one to go to at the police department. And then the only other option is to come to the manager. And if they don't get any satisfaction there, I mean, we have an officer here in the audience that had to be hand delivered a note to say, we're gonna investigate you for following protocol, basically. All they had to do was call her in the office and say, what happened? Wouldn't even speak to her. So it's just the mismanagement, and nothing's being done. I'm glad you're bringing these things up. I don't know what all FDLE can do.
I don't find it by accident that the 2 officers that committed a mortal sin within our department, which is asked the sheriff's office for help, were both put under internal investigation shortly thereafter.
So, in saying that, the points I wanted to raise tonight were more budgetary.
Thank you.
So, over the years, there's always been talk, and the reason I'm bringing this up is the constituents that I talk to, it's their question. And I told Randy at our meeting this week or last week that during the budget process, and tonight obviously we can't look at numbers because we don't have the information, but we're spending roughly $2 million on the police department, and if you subtract grants and income from tickets or whatever, it's about 1.9 million. Well, our ad valorem is 1.6 something. Just I can say 1.7. Our ad valorem is 1.7 million. So our ad valorem doesn't even pay for the police department, which it may not in a lot of small cities. I understand that. So my thing is, let's look at cutting the budget, cutting some shared services that we already do with the sheriff's department. Central dispatch. And these are numbers I want to see before the budget. So y'all can start taking notes, because like many things, you have to ask more than once. We need to look at, and it's not that central dispatch is going to maybe save us a lot of money, but it will save time, dispatch time, which ends up saving lives.
Efficient.
We are probably one of the few small cities left in Florida that has their own dispatch. There's multiple, and some of those guys on the back row know way more about it than I do. But we need the central dispatch. It'll save time. I believe it will save money. Investigative services. As of this week, we don't have an investigator. Well, he got promoted, he passed his test, and he's now a sergeant. I'm assuming maybe he still investigates, but the sheriff has a full-blown investigative department with things that I don't even know they use to investigate. Why should we in the city we don't really have a department now. Let's utilize the sheriff for free. That's for free. And I'm sure there's a lot of other services that I'm not an officer, so I can't think of all of them right here tonight.
Well, we pay quite a bit in taxes towards that, so we are paying for that.
Not anything for free.
Right, but if we can eliminate a position, which we have a lot of open positions, so really we don't even eliminate one now. We just scratch off one of the open positions and not refill it. Well, we just saved $75,000 for salary, insurance, car.
And that's what budget conversations are about.
So and that's the conversations we need to have.
And it's
not eliminating the department.
To have the conversations.
I'm for having a police department. Please do not misunderstand me. But I am also for reducing the budget and not paying for duplicate services. In a small town, it just doesn't make sense. So those are the things I would like us to look at, and I've shared some of these with Randy, and I'll get it's not ever going to be an exhaustive list, but a list of others, and maybe you guys can think of things. Maybe the back row there can help us with duplicate services. Maybe Sergeant can say, yeah, both of us are doing this, and let's cut our budget a little, not defund. I'm not talking about defunding. I'm talking about saving money because we're both duplicating services.
Well, I'm always looking forward to saving money, but I also believe that the citizens of Clewiston deserve to have dispatch within their city. And if there's redundancy that we can do, I don't believe that the city residents should have their calls dispatched to Port LaBelle and then come back over here.
It doesn't matter the location, Molly.
So, well, listen, during the hurricane, it did matter because all communications was lost from the east side of the east side of the city. I mean, east side of the county to the west side of the county, and I'm not willing to take that chance for $75,000. Really? And the thing is that I think that you brought up the vacancies, and I'd like to ask the city manager to please give us a list of those vacancies, because Commissioner Pittman mentioned November, and I believe that some of this started happening at that point when there was such, I would say, negative connotations with these conversations. But I'd like to see when the officers started leaving and during the months they started leaving.
I'd like to see the exit interviews also.
I don't believe they do them anymore.
So anyway, in saying that, I would like to see those numbers, and I know other people would, about the monies we could possibly potentially save in the budget. When we do have an emergency, yes, dispatch can still have a console in the police department. And if there is an emergency on the west side of the county and we're the EOC or vice versa, all it takes is you flip a switch and you're back online, especially with the new 800 system. It's that simple. It works that easily. So that isn't an issue.
And to have that
but the response time to a heart attack victim, seconds count.
Right.
And a lot of times between calling in the county and then it goes to LaBelle and then LaBelle to Clewiston, it could be minutes. Sometimes it's been 10 minutes. And you can ask some of the fire guys, they probably all left on the truck, I guess, but it's been literally, 10 minutes. When that's life or death. So
If I could just interject though, with the new interoperable communication system, that should not be happening. That we're going to be able to directly communicate for the first time in history, as I understand, or in a long time, with.
Still not, you're still gonna take a second step to get the call.
You don't have to though.
So,
They're not
Mr.
going to be in
Martin,
two radio systems, so it doesn't have to be that way. I do think there's a mechanisms by which you can avoid that, and that is something that my anticipation is that will be addressed with the new system and with the right protocols. That's not necessarily the way it has to be with equipment.
Mr. Martin, I'd like to just say, as the newest commissioner, I think a lot of people in the community have seen this coming for quite some time. The resignation of our chief and a little bit of change in leadership, and or maybe a lot of it, who knows. But we've seen good officers leave, and I think we've picked up some good officers, which is great. I just want to go on the record as saying one thing that I am not interested at all. Saving money, awesome. Like, let's be fiscally responsible. That's what we're supposed to do. I am not interested at all in playing fast and loose with the city's charter. And it's been pointed out to me a number of times that, oh, you can have one person in the police department technically and be fulfilling the spot, be fulfilling the charter in that way. And I know no other way than to say that that is just kind of shady politics, and that's not what I want to be about. I feel like everybody knows where this is going, what kind of choice this is going to, and I feel like it's should be the choice of the citizens if it comes to that. I won't support the whittling down past the point of no return of our department.
Well, I can just assure you one thing: we will not attract the caliber of clients and clientele for any of the positions if that is the perceived direction that this city's heading in, particularly any leadership. You can get people to apply and you can appoint, but if we want a caliber person to lead the department and the kind of officers to retain, you've got to give them clear direction. Because I've heard that feedback that people have left because of uncertainty of the job security. I've been told that. And right, wrong, or indifferent, I tried to disagree and say, well, that's not a concern as far as I'm concerned with the city. I don't see that among our leadership of our elected officials. But
this is a cycle we go through every 4 years at the election that seems to raise its head and the conversation comes around. Has not been a change. Do we always need to look at money saving? Yes, we should always take a look at that, and we do every time. But I think as a whole, our citizens have been happy with what the police department offers. Now, are there those people who are disenchanted? Yes. Sometimes investigations don't go that way. You will always have those people who will be naysayers or detractors. But I think as a whole, this is an opportunity to move forward. We have a sergeant who is very well qualified to understand what it is that the commission is looking for as we move forward. And that's where the decisions have to be made right away, is with us. What do we want that police department to look like? I'm a community policer all day long, always have been, always will be. Is that a philosophy that everybody up here wants to embrace? What do we want that to look like as we move forward? That interim chief is the one who will help to assist to craft and what that foundation is going to look like. It's the opportunity to create for the men and women who are the boots on the ground what the city of Clewiston needs. And as we've all said, beginning with the placement of the interim is where we're going. And in your words, you said that was number one on your list.
yes, ma'am.
Go ahead and finish with your budget ideas. I'm sorry, Commissioner Pittman.
No, the budget ideas are, those are it. There's more solutions, but that's, you know, that's for the budget discussion. Something I want to talk about is adopting a whistleblower policy. We have officers right now, today, that are job scared. They're afraid they're going to be fired, and they can't say anything because if they say something, they know that's what will happen. And I want us to adopt it and make sure it includes the police department. We had an animal control part-time person because she said something. She was a runoff, basically. So we've got to put something in place that most other companies have in place to protect our employees. So if they do see something, you know, anyone that flies in an airport, they have an announcement that plays every 1 minute. If you see something, say something. Not in Clewiston. If you're an officer and you see something, you better not say something because they'll lose their job.
Have any officers come to you, Mr. Martin, and given you the opportunity to deal with an issue and follow through?
I've informed a number of employees here and everywhere I've ever been that the city has a process and a procedure for complaints and grievances, if you will. The city has one. Whether it rises to the level that would be satisfactory to request that Commissioner Pittman is making, I don't know. You know, it's a judgment he would have to make. But we have a process, and I have encouraged people to come to me if they cannot get it, follow that process, which starts at the department, supervisory level. That's not uncommon and includes the police department. And I haven't had one of those. I did have one since I've been here in another department, and that person went through that process. But that is the nearest thing we have to what's described. But I haven't had any of those filed from the police department.
Okay, so that policy that you would follow could be extrapolated over and could be included in the whistleblower policy.
Well, I think in effect it could be argued it is one now, but
just not in black and white.
I'm sorry.
Just not in black and white.
Yeah, it's in the personnel policy. We have a procedure for getting grievances heard, and it might not. I've had other policies, and we certainly can compare them and see if this one is satisfactory. But the city's had that for a long time. I have read it, but I think it needs some work.
It needs to be enforced.
Well, it needs to be used if someone has it, because it specifically can prohibit retaliation, and that's the disappointing part. Is anyone who felt like that was going to be the outcome didn't take advantage of it, then they may have read that into their actions, but that doesn't mean it's true. But I certainly think that it needs to be utilized, enforced, and there are repercussions if anyone takes actions against someone who is aggrieved. And so, you know, there's a formal way to do it, and I've administered those policies for decades. And I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but I've done them before, and they were helpful in that sometimes things were resolved. Sometimes there couldn't be reconciled between the employee and the department, and some left, some sued, some did other things, but
some were given gag orders, so they were told not to
None in
speak
my
about their
experience.
department. Here, to you got it. We all got a copy up here. Miss Keener handed one to every one of us, where she was told not to speak to anyone about anything that goes on in animal.
Well,
To me, that's grounds for dismissal.
I don't want to speak.
I mean, that's a
about
violation of a whistleblower
I don't want to
policy.
speak about a personnel, but that particular employee did not follow my advice to file a similar complaint while still employed.
So there are steps on both sides that need to
Maybe
be
not
followed.
the form, the written form, but if someone tells you verbally and complains, you should have gone immediately, printed it, and while they were sitting there, have them fill it out.
Well,
I mean, but to say, oh, go back and fill it out, it wasn't done properly.
no, that wasn't the response. But again, I don't.
Yeah,
know.
well, and that's water under the bridge. I just don't want it to happen. It's happening and happening and happening to hardworking people that need their job, and they're getting run off from a hostile work environment, and have no recourse.
With all due respect, there's recourse if someone chooses to pursue it.
Well, not everyone can afford a lawyer.
What is the recourse?
Would you capture that? Would you have someone capture that and email it to us?
Yeah, the
And
personnel
so that-
policy contains that, and I'll be glad to. Again, it certainly needs some tweaking, in my opinion, at least that, to make it a better policy from my experience.
What's the recourse?
The recourse is to file a grievance or the equivalent of it, a complaint.
Okay, that's the process. What happens?
Well, it depends on the facts and what comes of it, but certainly not retaliation is not.
But if you don't agree with the employee, where does it go there?
Well, they have. Well, you can see what we have in the way of a policy, but there's a procedure for it. But
I'd like to see
Where does it progress after you?
I'd like to
does it?
see it.
there's well, again, I
don't.
won't quote it. I haven't read it today.
None of us have it in front of us, but so we'd like. I think it's a great
But
idea.
either way,
To us
that doesn't
again.
mean we can't have a better policy and improved policy. It's got things like a committee in it of other employees, of peers, things like that.
That committee exists?
No, it's created each time there's a someone goes in.
So it's a new committee every time somebody has
As
an
it
issue?
should be, yeah.
And personally, my experience, that's not a effective way to deal with it sometimes. Maybe that's a last resort, but personally, I think there's a better way to do that. But
I'd agree.
and I don't know the history of what's been done here in the past, but the point is, you'd like to see the policy reviewed, and I have no objection to that.
And strengthened and include, make sure all the departments are included, and then an orientation done. I mean, where our department heads know, and all the employees know, and
I'm sorry, I missed that part of it, orientation.
yeah, I don't think our employees even know.
Yes,
What's
they're
in the
given a
handbook.
copy of it, and they have signed that they've read it. So again, that's it's not as important when you're reading it when you're getting hired as it is
Right.
later
Yeah.
when you need something. So no problem with that.
We discussed a charter. Well, we didn't discuss it. We brought it up about having a charter review committee to clean up some language about appointed positions. I think was one problem we had recently, and there might have been a couple of other issues. I do know if you are going to have a charter vote that it takes, you have to finish it before the election, like months and months before the election. So if we could just bring it up at the next meeting, maybe everyone could let Randy know if there's anything they think needs to be cleaned up in the charter.
Well, all I would ask for that, since you're not acting on it at this time, is you strongly consider whether you want to create a charter revision committee. I know I've been told there's been a number of those over the years. I don't know how many. I know of at least two that I've been referenced. And the only caution I'd have is the parameters that you're going to go down that. Is this latest incident, is that sufficient to generate something that requires going on a ballot and whatever? Because that has been a concern that I've heard expressed. If you open the door to it, then that could send a message that you're going to change a lot of things like the police department or whatever. But that's the board's prerogative if you choose to go down that. Personally, I feel like that's such an unusual set of circumstances on that one incident that we had. I just don't know that to me would be justification to do it, but that's your call. That's the board's call, whether you want to have a charter review for something that narrow and go to all of that trouble, or do you want to look at it in a broader sense? Are there other issues? I don't know. I've not heard them discussed, but
So that's a
And I'd
reading
like for us
assignment
find
to
out
go
from
through
the
that.
Florida League of Cities, because I know the state of Florida just did away with their charter review commission. So I'd like to for them to meet, and I'd like to know what decisions they took to do away with the charter review committee for the state of Florida.
the legislature.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, where they did. I
Yes,
understood
sir.
they did.
I got just one more thing, so I'm not going to belabor this a lot, but I'm going to be making a motion at the next meeting about animal control, that we will no longer take any payments at the animal control facility, and then put signage on the door that says no payments accepted here, no cash. Y'all figure it out. No cash kept on premises, whatever. And then also a sticker put on their vehicles that says no cash in vehicles or something. And the reason I say this is I got some reports from the deposits of animal control, and cash. Everything's cash. I mean, they could have up to $1,000 cash. And even if they get a payment, it could be in their truck, and we just don't need that. We don't need that liability. We don't need our officers subjected to potential robbery. And number three, we don't need cash, floating around at the animal control or any facility for that matter.
Nobody should.
Especially when someone pays cash and then it's not deposited for 2 weeks later or 1 week later. It just you can't do that. You can't leave cash hanging around in a drawer, and it's just not good practice. We're gonna get in trouble. We're gonna get caught, and then and I don't want to see that happen. So just letting you know so you can prepare whatever you need to prepare. It may not pass, but at least you can forewarn finance, and they can come up with a procedure. I say all the payments go to the police department. They're open 24/7 anyway, which is logical. We probably even did that at one point in the past. I don't remember, but
What's the downside to something like that?
I don't know, because they're open. When I go to get permits in any other city in Florida, you have to a lot of times drive across town and pay the clerk and then bring the receipt back to pick the permit up. So it's nothing unusual about that. Even out here at the county office, you have to walk around the building and pay the clerk and then go back and pick up. So it's, another thing I wrote down is we need to have office hours and we need to have a fee schedule. If you look on this, some people are charged $30, some $28 for the same service. Some dogs are adopted and they get charged. Some people get a dog and they don't get charged. So there needs to be some rhyme or reason and a fee schedule, and why some people are paying one amount and some another. And there may be reasons for that. I think cats are $10 cheaper than dogs, which makes sense. Dogs are usually bigger. They eat more, I guess. But we need to streamline it. And I know the financial thing Sherry was talking about is going to help with the payments, but I don't think we need to take them there, period, anyway.
And that'll take care of it in the longer term, but that's not going to happen overnight. You're exactly right on that. Okay.
There's a lot more, but this was supposed to be a meeting about police and animal control, and a lot of other minutia got put in that could have been told to us in an email or a memo that wasted 45 minutes, and that's not what we asked for. And I'm disappointed that we added all the other stuff.
You were discussing about the call meeting?
No, I'm talking about the 4 financial reports and all the other minutia we talked about in the workshop when it was just supposed to be about police and animal control.
Well,
that's what we said, and we all agreed.
Well, that was your request. I agree.
Well, and I think
No, not mine. All of us sat up here that night.
Well, there's a lot of
Melanie
things.
McGahee didn't make a motion, but said we need to have this meeting. Yes, we need to have the.
Well, and I agree that we need to have workshops, and I have been for almost several years talking about a workshop on the Highway 27, and those have occurred at some times, but it's not exactly been the way I've wanted it to occur. But we've had those discussions, and I think tonight's discussion has been very valuable. I don't see it as a waste of time. To find out from a commissioner that either I'm being stalked or law enforcement's being stalked is very disconcerting. And I would not have found that out if it had not been a public meeting. So I am
That's
thankful
what you got out
for
of that conversation?
I'm thankful for that.
That's
All
what
right,
you got out of that
I got a lot
conversation.
more out
So,
than just
moving
that.
That's why we're in the
But
position we are
also,
right now.
Moving forward.
but also, I did bring up something, so it is for the public records. These are the information I referred to earlier.
The and not to belabor it, but the workshop, I'm a little concerned about that. This was set as a regular workshop every other month when the new board members came came on board.
Well, I was at our last
Tonight's
meeting, we
meeting.
didn't even have a date. And you said, I'll poll the commission to see when we can do the workshop.
It was in the agenda, and my understanding, I thought it was a consensus that we would do it tonight. We had talked about doing it earlier in April, and then we had all of those Commerce Park meetings over the
At
last
the last
2
meeting,
months.
Randy,
Yes, sir.
there was no May 3rd date. And I said, hey, when are we going to have that? And you said, we'll try to get it in April. We didn't happen. And you said, I will pull the commission and we'll have it in May, probably the first Monday.
And that's what I put in it. And I agreed, and
It's
the
okay.
police,
We're done now. It's all right.
well, police
It's all right.
department's on the agenda.
And so
animal
are some other
control.
things that we needed
I didn't
to
go
hear,
into
so-
depth in the animal control because of the change in leadership and other things, but that's been discussed. Got no objection to
And
that.
now's the time to include those
Yeah.
changes.
I've
Yes.
certainly not avoided what the commission, I hope, wanted to talk about, because I think the topics we did discuss were important to and germane to the discussion tonight. And I'm hopeful that I'll always listen to the direction of the majority of the commission on these kind of things, because I want us to have a collegial relationship and working relationship. And my goal is to respond in a timely manner to the board. I will say that things, sometimes you get pulled in different directions and get different direction from members, and I'm not complaining. I take the job, and that comes with it. And so I will do my best, but I believe it was communicated to the board that tonight was the night that we would discuss it. But since 2 weeks from now we have a meeting, I've listed the items that we're aware of on the agenda, not for discussion necessarily, regarding other topics that'll be on your next agenda if you want to comment on any of those. But
I can
That was
say
my
one
goal.
more note,
yes, sir.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
This is another safety liability thing. I've noticed in some of our city vehicles, there's non-city employees riding in them, whether it's the children of the people or whoever else. And I just want to make sure we're covered if an accident was to happen,
Gotcha.
and what our policy is on it. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be able to do it. I'm just saying, I know other
What are the
people have to have
protections?
policies, so I just want to make sure we're covered on that.
Good question. We'll get your response.
Chief Nelson, did you have brief comments you wanted to make?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Commissioners. Kevin Nelson, representing Sheriff Gooden. Regarding Commissioner Garden's trash articles that she brought up, those were printed from a newspaper with a reporter with a criminal background. Okay, he printed accusations, never came back and printed what the results were. So they're part of your record now, but it's nothing but a political ploy. It comes up every 4 years. They keep adding to it, and it's trash.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Chief, this is an article that came out
I know exactly which article
with
it is.
Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting.
Yeah.
That's nationwide, that came out in several publications. And in this article that was written by the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting, the link came to the article that was updated in January of 2021. Now, there's a lot of facts in here, and I realize that you don't obviously agree with it, but I believe it's my responsibility, since I saw it 2 times last week and 1 time this week, to bring it up. So thank
the
you.
The only facts in there were accusations. There's no factual information about the outcome of those investigations or the accusations.
But no, and I brought up Brady cops. So you're telling me that the Hendry County Sheriff's Department does not have any Brady cops on
I
it?
read all 3 of those Brady letters and the investigations pertaining to those. I've been in law enforcement since 1980.
Mhm.
It's all ridiculous. The state attorneys in the state of Florida have too much power. They can write those Brady letters on anything that they disagree with in an investigation.
But so the Sheriff's Department does have Brady cops. they're titled Brady cops. Because that's what the article
we have three
said.
officers that have been issued a Brady letter.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That was what the facts that I brought up tonight. Thank you.
And like I said, just the
Commissioner.
investigations were subjective.
Thank you, sir.
True.
Thank
And
you.
And that echoes what I was saying earlier about our policemen feeling they're working in a hostile work environment. If they get something issued on them, an internal investigation or internal affair, that goes in the file, whether the investigation came out clean or not. And it sounds like that's what happened with these
And
guys.
that's an FDLE.
It just shows there was an investigation.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Okay.
I'm sorry, because I read a lot, and I can't say that I always agree with all articles, but when there are facts in an article, when they deal with issues, and when I know for sure that there are some of those discussions in this article that are facts, and when it mentions the city of Clewiston and an animal control officer that cost the city of Clewiston a settlement, those are facts. Those aren't just a reporter making up trash. Those are facts. And so that's why I brought it tonight. As I mentioned, I saw it twice last week. I saw it again this week. And I pay attention when things keep coming up.
Didn't we?
Thank you.
Do you know about the leadership in the police department just cost us a lawsuit we had to settle?
I'm not answering your questions at this time because I believe that you have a personal issue with me as a sitting commissioner by letting me know tonight that you know what I am doing throughout the day, not only once, but weeks at a time. So I'm concerned, Commissioner.
I'm concerned too.
I'm concerned by your actions tonight and how you have pointed out my activities, which to me is very disconcerting.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, was there anything else you wanted to bring up under the item B, the discussion of the police department?
No, ma'am. The next item, the board had asked to be put on a workshop. Based on the earlier comments, I don't know if you want to discuss it, was discuss the potential for naming of city recreational facilities. But I had that listed, but if you don't
I
want to
think
discuss that, that's the only other item I had.
I would like to see some kind of a policy. I think that historically, naming buildings within the city has come after an event or a loss. And I'm not sure what the criteria was that was utilized to make the selections for the naming. I would like to see a framework for us to work within so that as we have facilities that we believe we would like to tag with a name, that we do it consistently, we do it fairly, and we do it judiciously.
I've heard tonight lots of discussions about policies and the need for policies, and I agree with you. We should have a policy on naming facilities or parks or fields.
I'd say a process. I don't know about a policy.
And I call it a policy, but when you talk about standard operating procedures at the police department, they lay out your processes of how you answer the calls, what it is that you need to do. And that's what I'm looking for here. What is it? What is the process rather
we
than
gonna
a
establish
policy?
the process,
But
or
it's
we
going
handing
to
that to somebody else?
extrapolate over. It's going to become a policy. So,
Would we handle that process or hand it to somebody else to come up with?
Mr. Martin can create that, bring it to us to take a look at. I would, there's a number of directions that could go in. You could have a committee that would take a look at it. If it's a recreational facility, well, then do you tap the people who are high profile in recreation? And, if it's a public safety building, do you tap? So I'm sure he'll come up with a couple of recommendations, and then it would come to the commission to be signed off on. So commission is the one who enacts. So,
Thanks.
but let the community have that input and their say and legwork. That's just my suggestion. Yes, come on up to the mic and give us your name and your address. And
It's me, the immigrant again. Laura Smith, 206 Ridgewood Avenue. Whew, missed the young and restless today, and this was something quite enlightening, I must say. Some good, open, honest, and interesting discussions. I had one question for the city manager. The interim chief, is that going to come within the department or does it come from outside?
Either or.
Okay. The hiring of the new chief of police, will that be the same process that we did when the city manager came in?
I don't know all the particulars, but not necessarily. At this point, I would not recommend engaging a consultant to go through that. I might utilize some resources, but no.
Would we see those candidates prior to them being hired as members of the public? I mean,
it depends. Yeah, I haven't done that in my career in hiring a department head, but certainly I'll take that under advisement.
You know, as most people have stated, the city police department is a very community based. I will tell you, in the past year, I've been severely disappointed, not in the individual people, but just the general mantra of the involvement of the actual city police leadership. You know, some of the police officers too, they don't come from here. We've had the same with the sheriff's department. Some of us reach out and try and work with the sheriff's department too. But in the past year, we've had that blue and green head to head. It may not be on the street level, but I would like to see that the person coming in has that. And I have expressed to Steve Whidden, or Sheriff Whidden, my disappointment too in the fact when the supposed riots were supposed to happen, or demonstrating that lack of communication, the lack of cohesiveness. You know, we pay for double protection in the city of Clewiston, and one would expect them to rise above that personal ego trip or whatever it was to knuckle down, find the way to give us the protection we deserve, to protect the officers, and to actually reflect the fact that we are a small community, and one little drop actually acts as almost a tidal wave right the way through this. As we've seen in the past couple of weeks, we've had some notoriety the world over, not just locally. You know, and I would agree with the mayor, let some of these things run out. I'm also the one that wants answers very quickly, and I appreciate all the viewpoints this evening, but I will tell you I'm looking forward to a new era of community policing, where they will stop on the street and talk to the residents, and once again get out on the ground now COVID's over, and move along. So,
Thank you, Laura. Mr. Martin? Anyone have any other suggestions about the recreation facility naming?
Nah, just rather him bring a process.
Take a look at it.
Yeah.
Okay. So item D, upcoming May 17th agenda topics. We have Ms. Rosen, pension update, budget amendments, commission consideration of the plat of Clewiston Commerce Park, and the change order for conductor power for the substation. Do you have any questions, any comments on?
Good.
Commissioner Gardner, Commissioner Heisler, any questions, any comments?
No.
Mr. Martin, do you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Brandenburg, do you have anything for us?
No, Mayor, I do not. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Well done. Do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved by Heisler, second by Pittman.
Yes.
All those in agreement signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 6:50.